Every year, Americans spend over $2 billion trying to erase plants from their lawns. Herbicides, weed and feed, perfect green carpets maintained like a ritual. We pour money, weekends, and chemicals into a single goal: total control. And every year, another number rises quietly in the background: antibiotic resistance. Infections that used to be routine are becoming harder to treat. Doctors are watching old, reliable drugs slowly lose their power. Those two facts usually sit next to each other and never touch. Tonight, we press them together, because some of the most sophisticated antimicrobial chemistry square in your neighborhood is the problem you've been trained to kill. Not miracle cures, not replacements for medical care, but a forgotten toolbox and a story that explains why you forgot it. Stay with me to number 1. It's the weed that refuses to die, and it may be the best symbol for this entire archive. Here's the uncomfortable part. We didn't simply test these plants fairly and move on. We built a culture where sterile lawns became a status symbol, and anything that survived without permission became an enemy. A quiet shift in language happened too. Herbs became weeds, and weeds became dirty. That shift didn't happen by accident. It happened because systems reward what they can sell and punish what grows for free. Think about that. A plant you can't patent is a plant nobody advertises, and a plant nobody advertises slowly disappears from memory. The archive opens after war, when chemistry moved from battlefields into households, and the perfect suburban lawn was marketed like salvation. The same factories that once made wartime chemicals found a new peacetime customer: the homeowner. In that new world, plants your grandparents once called remedies were rebranded as problems. But the plants didn't disappear. They stayed in driveway cracks, along fence lines, in the edges of gardens where nobody sprays, and in old manuscripts, field medicine notes, and monastic gardens. Their names kept appearing like fingerprints. Generation after generation, someone wrote them down, not as folklore, as instructions. So tonight we do something different. We don't just list 12 weeds, we reopen 12 case files. Quick note, this is education, not medical advice. Do not self-treat serious infections. Seek professional care. Traditional use and lab studies are not the same as clinical treatment. What we're exploring is potential and the cost of forgetting. Number 12, cleavers. This is the sticky plant that clings to your socks on a summer walk. Most people only notice it when they're pulling it off their clothes. But in medieval monastic gardens, cleavers wasn't pulled in disgust. It was gathered with purpose, used for swelling, glands, and drainage. Monks kept careful notes, and cleavers earned its place in them. Lab studies suggest certain iridoids and tannins may show antimicrobial activity in controlled settings. Educational only. Don't treat infection at home based on this. Traditional advice emphasizes cold steeping because heat can degrade fragile compounds. The preparation, in other words, was already half the knowledge. Number 11, ground elder. Gardeners today curse this plant. It spreads underground and refuses to leave. But the Romans planted ground elder on purpose, at garrisons from Britain to Germany. Their logic was blunt: carry your medicine by growing it. An army far from home couldn't afford to forget its remedies. Lab research has explored compounds like falcarinol for antibacterial activity. This is not a substitute for antibiotics. Traditional guidance focuses on young shoots before flowering. Chemistry shifts as the plant matures. Timing the harvest wasn't superstition, it was understanding the plant's seasons. Number 10, self-heal. Self-heal is one of those names that sounds like marketing until you realize it's centuries old. People didn't name it lightly. The name was a memory device. Across traditions, it shows up for throat and gland issues. Lab studies suggest rosmarinic acid has antimicrobial properties in controlled settings. Treat this as research context, not a home cure. Traditional preparation is short infusion, covered to preserve volatile compounds. Cover the cup, and you keep the very molecules that make it interesting. Number 9, sheep sorrel. Sheep sorrel thrives in poor soil, which is exactly why lawns hate it. Where grass struggles, this plant celebrates. Its sharp sourness comes from oxalates. Early research explores anthraquinones and flavonoids for antimicrobial potential. Caution, sorrels can be high in oxalates. Risks vary by person. This is why natural doesn't mean safe at any dose. The same plant can be food in small amounts and a problem in large ones. Respect, not fear, and never blind enthusiasm. Number 8, wood sorrel. With its little heart-shaped leaves, wood sorrel looks almost too delicate to matter. But it was used for wound washing, not because it was magical, but because it is rich in astringent tannins. The old instruction is simple: cold press, don't boil. Because the compounds you want can change with heat. Again and again, the archive repeats the same warning. The method is not optional. The method is the medicine. Number 7. Plantain, not the banana, the low, flat rosette growing in every sidewalk crack. Plantain appears in some of the oldest English medical manuscripts. In the Leech Book of Bald, it's prescribed for infected wounds. That text is over 1,000 years old, and plantain is right there in it. Lab studies suggest compounds like aucubin may have antimicrobial activity in controlled settings. This is not a treatment plan for infected wounds. The field logic is simple. Crush leaf tissue, apply as a barrier. The preparation is part of the effect. A soldier, a farmer, a traveler, anyone could carry this knowledge in their hands. Number 6. Dandelion, the most hated weed in the world. $500 million a year is spent trying to kill dandelions. Yet bitterness was historically a signal. The plant that tastes harsh might be doing something serious. Our ancestors trusted bitterness. We trained ourselves to fear it. Research explores bitter compounds and immune-related pathways. Conclusions depend on study design. Food-level plant. Do not frame this as infection treatment. Traditional preparation is gentle simmering, not aggressive boiling. Every cup of dandelion coffee your great-grandparents drank was, quietly, an act of memory. Number 5. Purslane. Purslane is eaten across the world like a vegetable. In the Middle East, in Asia, in the Mediterranean, it's dinner. In the US, it's treated like an invasion. Same plant, two completely different stories. Early research explores whether plant polysaccharides can affect biofilms in lab conditions. An interesting mechanism is not the same as a clinical outcome. Short cooking preserves texture. Long cooking changes what you're actually consuming. The culture that eats it kept the knowledge. The culture that sprays it lost it. Number 4. Chickweed. Winter has always been a test for herbal medicine. Most plants die back. Infections do not. When the garden goes silent, the need for remedies doesn't. Chickweed keeps growing under light snow, a quiet green survivor when everything else surrenders to the cold. Some early studies look at saponins and flavonoids. Evidence strength varies. Avoid promising outcomes. Keep this educational. Many traditional preparations emphasize cold infusion. The plant that ignores winter was, naturally, the plant people leaned on in winter. Number 3. Stinging nettle. Yes, nettle stings. That sting is a warning label written by nature. Most people meet nettle exactly once and decide to never touch it again. But once blanched, the sting disappears, and you're left with a mineral-rich food. Claims must be qualified. Food plant in many cultures. Do not frame this as an antibiotic alternative. Blanching neutralizes the sting. The archive teaches technique. The lesson hides in plain sight. Knowing how to handle a plant unlocks it. Number 2. Yarrow. Yarrow carries a blood-stained reputation across civilizations. Achilles, Roman camps, field medicine on a dozen battlefields. Its very name in some traditions ties back to wounds and warriors. Some lab work studies essential oils against difficult bacteria. That's not the same as treating infection. No Cure language, we stay honest here. Covered steeping preserves volatile oils. Where soldiers fell, yarrow grew, and someone always remembered why it mattered. Number 1. Creeping Charlie. Creeping Charlie spreads like a rumor. Shade, sun, cracked pavement, it doesn't care. You can pull it, spray it, and curse it, and next spring it's back. Anglo-Saxons used it in brewing before hops dominated beer, not for romance, for preservation. It helped keep the drink from spoiling, long before refrigeration existed. Lab studies explore compounds like ursolic acid. Avoid definitive health claims. Do not self-treat wounds or infection. Traditional instructions are gentle, warm, not boiling, covered, or cold wash. And the last line in the file is brutally simple. Stop killing it. Here's the part most modern videos skip. The compounds that make plants interesting are fragile. Temperature matters. Time matters. Light matters. Boil the wrong leaf and you can destroy the very thing worth studying. If you destroy a compound during extraction, you can test a plant and prove it does nothing. How many remedies were dismissed? Not because they were useless, but because we processed them into silence. The answer is uncomfortable, because we'll never fully know. The plants survived everything we threw at them. The knowledge didn't. The archive closes the way it opened, with 2 facts side by side. We'd spend billions trying to kill plants in our lawns, and we fear a future where infections outpace our drugs. We are burning one library while desperately searching for another. The lesson is not replace modern medicine. Modern medicine saves lives every single day, and nothing here changes that. It's more humble and more urgent. Stop burning the library, learn to read it. The weeds were never the enemy. Forgetting was. If one of these weeds is growing in your yard right now, tell me which one. And if you know someone still fighting a weekend war against their lawn, share this with them. Because the next chapter of this archive is written by the people who choose to remember.